Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Lunch with Lindsay. So this one is about female friendships. Guys, I swear there are nuggets for you to pull out of this as well. But here's where this conversation started. So we all have different groups of girlfriends, right? That are from different parts of our life, or they serve different purposes for us. So myself and three of my friends were asked to be on the cover of a magazine. Okay, so this is our local Westport Magazine, and they wanted us to be on the cover because they know that we do frequent lunches where we really dig in and talk about career and life and all the things, the challenges, the struggles, the great parts, all of it. But my friend Stephanie, who is an actress, Emily, who is an accomplished novelist, and Alisyn, who's a journalist on CNN, we I find really do support each other. So this one, the theme would kind of be collaboration and camaraderie. But they wanted to sit us down to have a conversation after the photo shoot, and Samantha Yanks, who is the editor-in-chief of this magazine, of Westport Magazine, invited us into her home. She had a beautiful lunch prepared for us, but she was cool enough to allow me to record my podcast conversation around her same interview conversation with us. And it was a really cool vibe, and it actually was, I enjoyed it because it allowed me to open up about things that when you're, usually the moderator, so to speak, you don't really get all that chance. So it was such a beautiful lunch. It was a great conversation, and what I think is that there are a lot of relatable things that can be taken out of it. We have all had experiences where we didn't feel like we were enough. We didn't feel that we were, maybe doing what we should be doing. But at the end of the day, what I've learned from this group of women is the kind of woman that I really want to be, in a professional sense, in a sense of sticking up for myself, and in a sense of calling my shots, creating the boundaries, but also really finding a way to dig into the passion that fuels me. So here's this conversation over lunch, a gorgeous Italian salad at my friend Samantha's house with Alisyn, Stephanie, and Emily. I hope that you enjoy it. We begin talking about what we're all up to now.
I'm passionate about acting. That's my passion.
Yep.
And 10 years into my career, when finally doors were opening up, I lost my confidence, and I just had basically imposter syndrome. I was like unable to perform because I was worried about what people were thinking. They're gonna blah, blah, blah.
Super common for a lot of people.
Yeah. And that drove me to, discovering tools to help me navigate doubt, fear, change, all that better.
What project were you in when that happened to you?
So I got Dinner for Schmucks. I auditioned. The auditioning process was like super intense, and I did well. I'm a competitor. Like, I played golf in college. I'm a competitor, and I was like, yes. And
It got your juices going.
Yeah,
right?
and I was like doing my thing for 10 years. I had been like, a struggling actor, and I've always been motivated by negative reinforcement. So when people don't believe, that I'm like, yeah. But then I get this role, and people all of a sudden are like, oh my God, we're so happy you're here. And I'm with Paul Rudd and Steve Carell, and
you're in the game.
Yeah, but I'm like, they have so much more experience. They're icons, and what am I doing here? And it was weird, like I couldn't get it together. I know what nerves are like, but I could always get it together, and I couldn't get it together, and I felt like I couldn't perform, and I felt like crap.
What did that look like how does that manifest?
Nobody could see it, but it manifested me driving to the set with my heart like this, my legs feeling like they're cut, like when you almost get into an accident and your legs are like that.
But you knew you needed to tackle it, right? Like, you weren't, like, at some point you were like, I can't power through this, like, I'm powering through other things. Like, you needed support in a way.
Yeah, but I had spoken to a therapist, and he was telling me who I love, but for this specific thing, I couldn't, what he was telling me wasn't really helping. And then after that, for 2 years, like, I actually didn't get a job. I couldn't even get I remember there was an action movie, and I'm not an action movie person, and there was a role for the French bartender, and I was like, okay, I got the French bartender. I couldn't even get that. So my confidence was crappy. And then I got this other movie with Ryan Reynolds, Kevin Bacon, and Jeff Bridges. And again, big auditioning process, did well in the auditioning process. And then I'm like, yeah, and when I get on set, I'm gonna fuck it up. And but then and we're diverging. But this explains the book, really. And I was commuting between Boston and New York, and I saw at this bookstore a book by Deepak Chopra called The 7 Laws of Spiritual Success. And I was not a self-help person.
Yeah.
I would have been like, what's this crap? But for some reason, I got this book. And I read it on the way to Boston from beginning to end. I called my husband. I said, oh my God, I read this book. It's going to change my life. And I went to the bookstore, got flashcards. I'm a little bit of a nerd. And I did 7 laws, 7 flashcards. And every morning before I'd go on set, I would look at my flashcards. And that really changed my whole experience on set. It allowed me to be free and etc. Great. But 3 weeks later, if you had said to me what was in that book that you said was going to change your life, I would have been like, I'm not sure, actually. You know, you forget things. And so the book that I'm doing now is, so eventually what I did is I created a playbook for myself on my phone with all the takeaways from books or podcasts, all the stuff that helped me, so that every morning I can look at these things that help me navigate, you know, difficult times or just a day on set, and they're all top of mind. And I've been using that for 5 years. It completely changed my work and also my life. And during I'm almost done.
I'm so captivated. Like you don't need to stop. Don't worry.
During COVID, so I did a show called A Million Little Things that was about depression and suicide, and there was a mental health consultant on the show her name was Barbara Van Dalen. She started a nonprofit called Give an Hour, and I really enjoyed talking with her. Then I did some work with them. And during COVID, 2 people from Give an Hour called me. You know, we were all locked in our houses. And they were like, what do you do? We'd like to get to know you better. What do you do for your mental health? I was like, well, I do this little playbook thing. And they were like, we love this. Can we do a webinar series to bring it to our community? And we did that. People loved it, but people would always say, so what goes in your playbook? And I was like, it's personal. We're all different. Right. Whatever makes you, you know.
You.
Yeah, be you, think better, feel better, do better. And then bringing it back to Westport, Rodi Lorenz, who started Joyride here in town. I did not know Rodi, but she watched one of the webinars, and she contacted me and she said, I love this. I want to bring this concept to my instructors, but I'm still confused. How do you create your playbook? How do you decide what goes in it? Have you ever thought of writing a book? I was like, no, what would the book be? And she said, a workbook, how to create your playbook. And so I was like, oh, cool. And so I went to the nonprofit because I didn't want to do this. I was okay writing it on my own, but I didn't want to. I felt like I didn't have the authority to do a mental health workbook. And they were like, yes, let's do it together. And we included then other Give an Hour ambassadors who share their stories. I'm really proud of it. It sort of took a life of its own. It's got stories. It's got 8 exercises. I think it will make people laugh, and I think it will help people.
Can't wait.
So love
awesome.
it.
By the way, like some of the most successful NFL players, and specifically it makes me think, we've talked about this before, Russell Wilson, when he was with the Seahawks, had a sports psychologist who created a reel for him that he would watch. I think it was before every single game, and it was, I forget how many minutes it was, but it was highlights. It was exactly what Russell needed.
I know what it was. It was Michael Gervais, the sports psychologist.
It's crazy. Yeah. So he would watch it, and it would pump him up, and he talked about how it's such a great.
I took a course from this guy who worked with the Seahawks, and he said, so that's like their highlight reel. It's like all moments where you shine in your life, and that's part of the playbook. But there's other things too.
Love it.
I love it. I also love that you brought it back to Westport. That's actually very, very cool in terms of like part of what just kind of, you know, drove the conversation and who motivated you. That's really cool.
Well, and I will then say, so through that, just one last thing, because through our lunches, we're talking, and I tell Lindsay too, I'm like, and we're working on an app and for this as well. And Lindsay's like, I feel like you should meet my friends in town here who started Little Big Brands. They're a couple, they're a branding agency. I think they would really love this.
They were our neighbors.
Yeah.
Pam and John.
And then I met them and we're doing the app together. And they actually came up with the name, the book is named Selfish. And it was their branding person who named it, which, I mean, they had like 15 names, and one of them was Selfish, and I was like, I love that.
So cool.
That's totally
That is a good name.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, Alisyn, I know you have so much that's going on. What are you like hyper focused on professionally at the moment?
I do try to inject some humanity or some levity into what I'm reporting in the news because I think we need that. Like, I truly think it's a public service. I think it's a mental health service. I know how hard it is to digest this news cycle that we're in. It can be all pretty catastrophic feeling between climate change, between school shootings, between the chaos and toxicity of the political system. I understand that can make us feel actually sick. And so I just try to be human and ask human questions and try to be relatable and try to have some levity if we can find it anywhere, because we still have to laugh and have conversations through it. And so that is what I kind of have tasked myself with. And then people often ask me, what do you do for your mental health since you're steeped in the news cycle, the toxicity of the news cycle all day? And I like writing. I like writing, and that helps me process my thoughts. And it's kind of a journal. I've always kept a journal from the time I was a kid through teenage years. And writing stuff down on the paper is like a slower thought process than breaking news and live TV. So I've spent the past 12 years working on a memoir. And I mean, it's a total passion project. It's a labor of love. It's been hard to do it because I'm not a professional writer like Emily. So writing a book is really hard, but very rewarding for me. I enjoy it. I never have writer's block. I have a lot to barf out on the page. And
Same girl. Same. That's awesome.
And these women.
Emily reads everything that I write, by the way, right? Before I publish anything.
That's so
I'm like, I just barf it out. But she gets to look at it.
Like I have the opposite of, writer's block, like writer's barf. And so,
oh my God, I love that.
And so,
that is actually a great band name, writer's barf. Oh my God.
Nobody will buy it, but that is how I feel. And so, but like Stephanie was saying, these women have been so supportive. Like, Ellie's a writer. She's a real writer, okay? She's a professional writer, but she still takes what I'm doing seriously and says, oh, have you thought about this agent? Have you thought about this publisher? Let me, I did hear about a publisher here. Let me hook you up with this person. And it's so kind and generous and supportive, and it's made it all easier. It's just, and everybody, I mean, these guys right now are working with a great PR person who they've introduced me to. Like, everybody always, at our lunches, they always bring, they're great sounding boards. Yeah. They bring great suggestions, they bring great advice, and really helpful stuff.
Emily suggested the publishing house for my book.
That's right.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about that.
There.
Oh my God. I totally forgot about that.
So empowering for girls.
But also good mirrors, like call you on your bullshit. Not bullshit, but like,
sure,
don't. It's not, you know what I mean? Like,
but I think empowering, as we like go through this and we edit it and I think about it, like it's so empowering, like raising a now woman. My daughter is going to be 17. It's so empowering for girls to hear and women to hear that there truthfully is like an amazing support system out there. You just have to find the right people, right? And when you have it, it's incredible. Like, all of you are super successful in your own lanes, but there's also so much collaboration that can happen between you. I've always lived my life that way, and it's just like, I think great for, we touched a lot on mental health and we'll continue to, but there's so much that's out there that is like dangerous and horrifying and crazy for kids to see. But there's also so much goodness, and like there's just so many ways that we can all support each other, and you're all doing that. So for us, it's spectacular to be able to shine a light on that. And I don't know, I'm just like a little choked up. All right,
I think the new generation also will only be able to help with that, because what I see coming up are really, I think, confident, like self-aware. I don't want to say kids, but I feel like the next generation that's coming into the workforce that I see is like, they know a little bit more about what they want. And I guess part of my point with that is like, I think you have to check yourself. I know, like being in sports at a younger, when I was starting out, often I was the only girl. So I was scared at certain points about like competition, right? Like there's that, you're like, where do I fit in this sphere? And there was like one female in every station in a market, at every market I went to, right? And you get used to that. And then when I went to ESPN, I was like, whoa, okay, there's so many people just like me, right? And so it's like I really had my eyes open, like, I need to flip a switch. I do not want competition. I want collaboration. And, that was an interesting, fast lesson that I learned.
Yeah.
And I also want to add that the collaboration, like Emily is the one who's driven. Like we have our lunches and a lot of them were dinners, but you're the one who's kept us.
I'm the cruise director.
She is.
I mean, listen, Emily drives my cruise ship too. What's exciting you right now in your career? Your own books, ghostwriting, like what's going on that you just like wake up every day and you're like, I'm going to take the time to do this, and everything you do, you just put so much heart into. Like what's driving you right now?
So actually they both writing my own books and ghostwriting both drive me. So I don't know if you guys know this, but when I first was in college and thinking about what I wanted my career to be, I always knew I wanted to be in journalism and writing in some way. And I thought I wanted to be on air, but I wasn't willing to go live in like butt fuck, and like put in, I didn't want it enough, obviously, because I wasn't willing to like put in journalism, to be on air.
Yeah,
so then I thought, but this is funny, I had a boyfriend at the time who was very, very into baseball. And so I had an inordinate amount of baseball knowledge. And I thought, well, maybe I could be a sportscaster, not on TV. I thought I was going to be a radio sportscaster, and I actually talked to
radio.
I don't know why.
Because you can really talk. Because you can
what's
be like,
her name? Susan Waldman, who used to do the Yankees on the radio, and I thought I wanted.
You were going to do play-by-play for the Yankees.
I don't do play-by-play. I probably would have been the color person.
He's like, whoa.
No, I would have been the color. There's a play-by-play and a color person. I think I could have done the play-by-play.
And sometimes they merge, and then you're like,
I also saw you playing basketball on visiting day. You were
right. I am also a very talented basketball player.
Cool radio voice. You would have
Thank you. I've been told that.
with the sexy eyes, no less. It's radio.
So I thought I was going to do that, and I went to work at ABC News. That was my first. I didn't, whatever. I didn't know I was going to be an editor.
But you were a desk assistant at ABC News.
I was an assistant to Tom Yellen, and then I was a PA. And then I was a production assistant or whatever they call it. I was like entry level. I mean, it was totally entry level for 2 years. And I did some assistant stuff for Peter Jennings as well, because it was for Peter Jennings reporting his documentary unit, not for World News Tonight. So, and then I sort of realized that world wasn't for me, whatever, you don't need my entire history. But basically, when I started writing books, I read Bridget Jones' Diary. Because I would read, I read frequently at that point. Although I was not a reader as a child, which people always ask me. I did not start reading.
You were not like a voracious reader.
No, probably not until the end of high school did I really start reading. And then I was an English major, so I read a lot in college. But I read for pleasure as well. And I read Bridget Jones' Diary. And quite honestly, I thought to myself, I feel like I can do this.
Right.
Like I feel like I could write a book like this, and this seems really popular. So
that's so cool.
So I obviously got into novel writing, And after maybe about 6 novels, I have 7 books in total, but I think after the 6th or the 5th, this ghostwrite fell into my lap. And I suddenly realized that it appealed to the side of me that had wanted to be more of a journalist.
Right. Yeah. You told other people's stories.
And I had also been
Makes
spending
sense.
years for magazines. I was a magazine editor, so I was writing cover profiles. I was interviewing people all the time.
Other people's stories are.
But I wasn't writing a whole book about their life. I was just writing a magazine article. And I had written hundreds of articles, luxury lifestyle, travel, all these things. And when I got the ghostwriting project, for me, it is easier work than writing a novel because it is really telling a story that already exists. The hard part is getting the person's voice, but outside of that, it's truly a little bit more busy work than like you don't have to create a world and characters and all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And also, suddenly you're writing with celebrities, so the book's gonna do pretty well. There's no nervousness around that. And it's also not, it is your book, but it's not your book, so there's not that feeling of, oh my God, I need to kill myself to sell this book.
Right.
I don't have to do anything to sell the book. I do because I want it to do well and I'm proud of it. But at any rate, I then sort of thought, well, and it's quite lucrative as well, which I'm not going to lie, it was a motivator. I mean, money's a motivator for sure. And so I thought, well, I could do a novel. I was writing a novel a year at the time. I could do a novel and 1 to 2 ghostwrites a year. I could really triple my salary and also be more fulfilled.
To write a ghostwrite?
So I didn't really know how long you could actually have. My first ghostwrite I had to write in 5 weeks.
Oh my God.
It was insane. It was a crash project.
And how long do you meet with the person?
I talk to them at when I talk to them, it's an hour chunks. That was a psychotic turnaround.
Total?
God, it depends on the book. It honestly really does depend on the book. I don't know. That's a really good question.
She's like, I
don't know. I could count. I could go back and count because I have all of I record everything. But so then the next book also was needed that I got 11 weeks for, which felt luxurious. And then I started getting projects and they'd be it's not due for 6 months. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Then I really did feel oh, well, now I can write 2 books at once. Or there was a moment where I had my hand in 4 or 5 different projects at once.
And did you really give yourself that 6 months, or are you
No, I got it done faster, but I was sort of happy to be able to take more time and make the book better. I mean, it's hard to make a book great in 5 weeks. And in this case, it didn't really matter. It just mattered who the person was. And also I was able to do other things too. Yeah. So I did sort of take more time than I actually needed. And then also not for nothing, now with all this AI stuff, there's a very real concern that fiction writing will be eclipsed in some way, and it's less likely that ghostwriting will be because those are people's actual stories. And you want really specific things that people don't know, to get that. So it's really a happy place for me right now. So I'm now working on my own eighth book.
Yep.
I'm writing that novel. So I actually only need to write the first 50 pages and I'm about 25 pages in to that.
What's it about?
So it is about.
Can you tell us?
Yeah, I can say. It's about a woman in her 30s who works at her family restaurant, which is an institution in Newport. And she sort of runs the restaurant, but has aspirations of being a chef and getting out of her small town that she grew up in. Mm-hmm. And she has grown up only with her mother, who told her that her father was a one-night stand and that he then passed away. And her best friend, you find out in the beginning, her best friend comes in and she finds out that her father has Parkinson's disease, and she wants to do a 23andMe kind of thing to find out if she has the gene for it. And she says to the girl, the main character, you're going to do it with me, right? Let's do it together. And she's like, sure, I don't even need to find out. They're not sisters, but she finds out that her father is still alive. and he's a very high profile multi-millionaire living in Greenwich, Connecticut, and that she has 2 half sisters.
Does he know she exists?
He does know she exists, and there's a lot behind him knowing she exists, and that he's been doing a lot behind the scenes to support her through the years that she doesn't know about. And she goes to meet them, and sort of goes into that world, and from there. Before Lindsay goes, I should also quickly just mention that they have also been very supportive of my career. And when Pretty Revenge came out, Alisyn did a big in conversation with me for the launch party at Mitchell's. And I've done in conversations online on Instagram with Stephanie and Lindsay, and they post about my books, and they are always, very supportive in that way. So it does go both ways.
So I second all of that with this group and friendship, because it's very true. So I'm I do sports. I'm a sportscaster, but what I found is I kind of woke up one day and it's like I'm freelance, right? And I've gone through all waves where I was full time at like one company for so long. I know, and so when I left ESPN in 2017, I first started getting gigs at, I was doing sideline reporting for Fox, and then CNN had a sports opening, and that's where I met Alisyn, which is so funny, which is great. And it was, but that was like for a swath of time, and the hours were really just so early.
You seemed to handle it so well. I would be like staggering by you at 3 a.m. I would come in at 4:30.
Really
I would get in at 4:30 because it's a long drive from Westport. Yeah. And I would walk by and you would already be there, like at your desk, like already scribbling. And
because I was paranoid and I wanted to do well.
You see,
and I am a morning, so I am a morning person. My husband hates it because I truly there's no question. I do my best thinking and stuff between the hours of 6 and after 4, I'm kind of I'm all for the European sleep nap, right? Yeah. But anyway, so so it's funny because when he gets up in the morning,
he his siesta.
He puts himself to bed at 8, and then that's fine.
He has to get up early.
Yeah, super early. And so anyway, where did I digress? So I was doing that for a while, and then I've had different little projects, which is great. But what has made me panic, if I'm being honest, is all of a sudden one day you're like, oh, what am I doing? Right? Because it's you're project based, and I like it, but also, if I'm being honest, there's a lot of self-worth wrapped up in that, because you're I'm a sportscaster. And then I've said this before, it's I've had people ask me, well, how are the kids? And in the beginning, that was really hard. I was like, I'm great. I'm going to be on this show. Whatever. I feel like you just have to be they're awesome. But what about whatever. I'm beyond that. But what I'm excited about is, I do still have some TV projects that I'm doing, but I have done different versions of a podcast for a while, right? And amongst our conversations, one of the people that Stephanie introduced me to was a friend now named AJ in Nashville. And I had never opened my mind to doing branding work, or really it's kind of self-discovery, right? You would say. So I met with them. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. It's your fault. And
it's totally my fault.
They were so great because they made me think they sort of put me through this process where it was asking myself over the course of 2 days a million things about who am I? What happened in my childhood during they asked everything. And I'm never on that side of it, right? So I was like, whoa, this is really heavy and therapeutic and awesome. And we came out of it, and she's like, why aren't you telling stories? Because what I'm passionate about, I think, is really storytelling. I do love sports, and I love live events. I really get fueled up by being at a live event or knowing the story behind players or a team, and really just digging in and being able to communicate that. I love that. And I like breaking news. I love breaking sports news when I love fighting to get that person to tell me something.
You're a very good storyteller. You did this stuff with Craig's mom.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That
was very touching.
So that conversation with Craig's mom was about race, and I had decided that I was going to just ask her stuff that I didn't know, of having 2 biracial children, so that sort of came during COVID. And what I didn't expect was that people were whoa, I've always wondered that. But I would never ask that. So that is really sort of at the core of now what I really want to try to do. And those people that I met with helped me figure out, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a video series. So right now I'm doing Lunch with Lindsay, and that's what it is. That's the umbrella. And I want to have interesting conversations with people about things that I feel are relatable. And one thing that I think is interesting is I've had podcasts where they're partnered with great companies, big companies where you get paid. Like when you ask about money, I have anxiety because I'm like, I really don't know. Like, right? But the truth is, I think you really have to lean into fear. And going back to this, the point I was just trying to make was I really feel like, leaning into conversations that you want to have. I'm sort of right now listening to what I think is interesting. And I'm hoping that people that come to me for content might find it interesting too. Because if they're following along with my stuff, it's sort of a big experiment. It's like, what do you want to hear about? If I'm talking to an NBA player like Chris Paul and he's talking about his family, we started talking about Black churches because he brought it up and I was like, I think this is fascinating. I want to know more about it. So there's that. But since then, additionally, I've been asked a couple times to give talks, right? To speak and come speak. Mm-hmm. But sorry. See, like when I'm interviewed, I don't do well. Keynote talks, right? So, and I did this. I was hired by an auto collision group to give a talk in Nashville, and it came on the heels of when I was doing an interview for my podcast, and I was like, this sounds really interesting to me, and I'm just going to do it. Like, they're asking me to come, they're going to pay me, but they're asking me to talk about redefining success in your career. And at that point I was like, this is a little scary because I don't really exactly know what to share with them. But the night before the talk, I had my talk ready. I was so panicked. Like it was sort of like what you were saying. I felt like
you need the playbook.
I almost needed to leave. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can I'm the only one without a PowerPoint. I'm the only, I don't know that I can do this. And when they asked me to come to the cocktail hour and I had to meet the man that was introducing me, and we sat down and he started talking about fear and risk. And, everyone in this room just wants to hear what you're trying, lean into the fear of doing your own thing and really going for it. And it was it reminded me of what made me feel like I could do something on my own when I met with AJ. And I was like, these people are electric. This is what I need. These are the creative people that I'm like, how shut off have I been that I need to prove to someone that I'm still doing X, Y, Z, right? In that world, maybe there's a part of that that's still my world, but I would like my world to be something different. But so I do wrestle with,
But how did the talk go? Then did you, was it nerve-wracking? Was it really energizing? Then what happened?
It was so energizing. I wanted to get back up and do it again. Again, just because it was so fun. And one thing I did is I started with a joke because now what's funny is that more people recognize me for these Instagram jokes that I started doing during COVID.
Oh yeah.
Than they do for anything else. And I went up, I started with that, and it was they liked it. And there were two guys from my hometown. I know, they were there. It makes me want to cry. From a car dealership, you guys, named Lindsay Cadillac in Virginia.
Oh my God.
Who I know. I don't know them personally, but I know that dealership, and they knew me from Virginia, and they followed me.
And did they name their automotive shop?
Like 4 decades before. But I was I'm a spiritual person, and I was like, thank you, God, for planting these men from Lindsay Cadillac in the audience, and then allowing.
Because they brought you back to what really matters.
Yeah, and I called them out in the middle of my talk, and it was it was such a moment. It was a great, fun moment. So
That's awesome.
I found myself really re-energized I played only a couple video clips. But it was sports centric things, moments that mattered to me that I felt really inspired by. And they really leaned into it. And I was like, this is what I would like to do more of, actually, is sharing with people, maybe lessons, or just not even lessons, access, moments. So I try to think about it now when I'm doing what I'm doing is, can I bring people along and give them a credential with me if I'm covering something? I'm doing a lot of horse racing now, and I've always wanted to learn more about that. I really like the sport. My dad covered it for years. And I'm like, if I have a platform that I can create for myself a little bit to show people what I'm doing and bring them along the way. And I really would like to raise people up as much as I can, especially women. I love men, and men. A lot of men have been great mentors too. But like, you know, I think
that as a pull quote.
Yeah, it's a great it's a great pull quote.
Yeah.
Great pull quote.
But I'm glad you pointed that out because I too have had incredible male mentors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
like super incredible. Like
And also
Absolutely.
bitch women.
Yep.
Yes.
100%.
Totally.
Of course. Right.
Which
right.
is why, like, I really admire these women because it's just sheer generosity.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
and they don't have to, like, you can either operate from a point of, you know,
Scarcity.
like scarcity, yes.
Yeah.
Scarcity,
I feel like
or
especially in
abundance.
our industries. When I was at
Yeah.
ABC, just for those 2 short years, all the men were so nice and the women were so cutthroat and so bitchy and so fearful that you were going to take their
That's
job.
kind of what I was saying about like
Yeah.
flipping the competition
Yeah,
switch. And
yeah.
I think for a long time, it's like women are being put sometimes in management positions, and during that time, it's like they're grown around the men, and you think you've got to act like a man, right? Maybe.
So I have one quick question for Lindsay, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Because we all have husbands who are in very different careers than we are.
Mm-hmm.
What is it like to be in the same career with your significant other?
I mean, ultimately, I think that it's helpful and it's nice. I think the biggest benefit to it is if he says, example, we're on vacation and he has an opportunity to interview Magic Johnson, and that comes up like the day before we're going on vacation. I get it. Like, do I love it? No, that sucks. But do I get it? Absolutely, because I would be on that plane.
Right.
Or
You
I
do
would
the
want
same
to be.
thing.
Right. And even it could be anyone that he's talking to. But so I think
Is
that
he as
there's-
understanding in the reverse with you?
He really is. He really is, to the point that sometimes, if I'm being honest, I wish like, you know, like sometimes he's so like, go do it. Like, I'm like, well, but really? Like, you don't, you know, sometimes you're like, well,
Yeah, you're not going to put your foot down.
you won't miss me,
Yeah.
right? You know, like, no, but no, he's ultimately supremely supportive in that. And I think, so that's one of the good things. One of the tough things is the same thing. It's like the push and pull. That's why I was on my bathroom floor crying about him leaving, and we had just gotten there, and I remember I called my dad too. So my mom's like, get wine. My dad's like, what are like?
And call your father.
So my dad's a journalist, right? I married my dad. Like, my dad worked for USA Today, covered politics and then sports, but he was always gone, and he was always doing really exciting things. And he also was cut when he was covering sports. Now I understand. And so it's an interesting dynamic too with all of that. But he in that moment was like, you know, I'll talk to him. And he's like, but that's not a good idea. And he was like, listen, you've got it. Like, what you have to do is maximize and understand that you have to make the most of the time that you're together.
Yeah.
Right. And at that time, did I want to hear that? No. But I think, to be honest, I think that's a theme for anybody. It's a theme for married couples. It's a theme for family. It's a theme for parents with children, right? Yeah. Like, I think about that all the time. It goes so fast. We all know that.
And now we're all like, go, honey,
Yeah,
go
totally.
away.
I
Go on
know.
a trip
Like,
for a
so
few
all
days.
5 of us are married. All of us have
Yeah.
kids. Do you feel, I mean, Lindsay, like Emily, great segue and question. Do you all feel that your husbands are super supportive of your careers? Yeah, lots of head shaking. I certainly feel that way about mine.
I could never do my career if my husband wasn't supportive. I could
too.
never
Yeah,
have
same.
left the house
Yeah.
every day at 4 a.m. if my husband wasn't going to be there to help the kids get to school, make breakfast,
Right.
do all of that. And on the times that in the news cycle, when it's been a really intense news cycle, like during the 2016 election, during COVID, anytime that I was feeling drained or exhausted, my husband would say things like, now is no time to take your foot off the gas, get in there.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too. I mean, I was really
Mine
supportive.
too. I mean, I started this role during, like, post-COVID. Like, my husband, Emily knows super well. Like, he's like, this is not the time to slow down. Like, yeah, I totally respect.
And I appreciate that. Like, I needed that fire lit because you can feel exhausted. And, so
And guilt also, I think.
Guilt.
Yeah, I mean,
exhaustion,
I don't
tired.
feel that much. I'm not somebody who like suffers from that much guilt because of the kids. Like, I always felt it was on balance great for them, even if I was absent, to see that I
to
had
see
a purpose,
mom
to see
too.
my purpose and how much enthusiasm I had for my purpose. So I
me
never
too.
had that much guilt, but it was very helpful to have have my husband remind me of my purpose.
I don't know what having it all is, but like,
That's what I mean.
when we were talking about
The balance, how the balance.
Just the gratification. I mean, having whatever you wanted.
Whatever you want.
I will say that I will never forget the one piece of advice that Alisyn gave me, and I know I've repeated this back to you before. You may not remember it now, but I was griping, and my kids were younger, so this must have been earlier on in our lunches and dinners, and I was griping about just like always doing everything, like being the person who always does everything. And she said, just don't do it. Right. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, if I don't do, she's like, just don't do it. Lie in your bed. And just don't do it, and somebody else will get it done.
And see what happens. I'm not. Women are terrified by this. Like that, it has not occurred to them. But because
it had not occurred to me to just not do it, and that someone else would eventually take the garbage out if I didn't.
I read something the other day. If you wait long enough to make your kids dinner, they'll eat cereal.
Yes.
And I was like, it's really gets so bad, but like it just takes like.
But it's also because I was a morning anchor. It was that I was exhausted. So I would come home at 3, whatever. I would have to take a nap at 3 p.m.
Right.
So while I took a nap from 3
That's
to
like
5
when the kids were coming home.
I didn't know what the hell was going on out there.
Right.
Like I didn't know. It sounded like a marching band at times. Like might be outside. It sounded like somebody was screaming at times. I didn't know somebody was breaking into the house. Like I didn't know what was happening. And so if somebody needed to be driven somewhere or something needed to be made, I'm not doing it.
Did that ever make you feel? Because a couple times when I've done morning shows, did it ever make you feel like you were missing out when you were in between?
No, I was missing out on slumber time. I was I'm not racked by guilt like that. No, I just knew what I needed to do.
I do. One thing I think also is when you mentioned the husbands, I think it's critical. And what I've learned is because sometimes I'll say to Melvin, like, we move so fast, like, and there are ebbs and flows of like how busy you are, but sometimes if it's hit just right, it's like we don't see each other or you're just ships passing. And, you miss a lot in those times, not only like seeing the other person, but obviously like some communication. And I really have a new lens of like just how important communication is. Mm-hmm. Also, you made me think about it when you were talking about what Tim said about just go for it, because there are times that if Melvin will say something and maybe because he's busy, he says it and I take it in as like, but that's harsh. Like, what do you mean? And I feel it. So I'm like, so wait, tell me, like, I don't understand. And I found, it's like, if you need to figure it out, go talk to someone. Like, truly, like now I'm like, I think therapy every week is great. Twice a week, win. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, because I just think
my therapist would love to see me twice a week.
Both
so with my family.
But
once a week is a requirement.
Like individual and couples. And also I was listening to something and they were talking about how they took their mom to therapy. I was like, I should take my mom to therapy.
Actually, I had a conversation with a girlfriend.
A lot of baggage there, or like sibling therapy. I was like, could use that. One of the things that I love to just ask a variety of people that I have conversations with is there something that you would consider the toughest thing that you have professionally or personally gone through that you really feel like you learned from that you would share to younger people? I don't know if that feels heavy.
No, I'll go, like the toughest thing has been to work, getting an acting job in Vancouver, so other coast, and for 8 months, and feeling like I was a commuting mom and not a commuting worker. But it's unbelievable. First of all, my kids, I feel, grew up seeing my husband who supported their mother, his wife, the person he loved, to go after what she loves. Like, he was part of the decision. I was like, I'm not doing this, on the phone with the producer. And he was like,
yes, you are.
Like,
right. My husband.
Yeah. It's going to be an adventure. And also it allowed him to step into a role that he maybe wouldn't have been in had I...
Right, more caregiver.
Yeah, more of a, like, he said to me the best thing. He was like, I never realized, like, when I would go to work, I would just go to work and house would be that. And he said, and now I realize when you were gone, I would go to work, but in my head, I had the kids schedule. I was never completely cut off. And I was like, yeah, I was cut off in Vancouver.
Right. Totally.
So that and then to younger girls, my mom said, your kids, you love your kids forever more than anything in life, but you are your own person. Your kids will leave, they'll have their own life, and keep your identity. You're not just a mother, you're also who you are as a woman. So that I've always, she worked her whole life.
Do you have a toughest thing?
Do I have a toughest thing? What is it? The toughest thing that's happened career-wise?
Anything, but something that you've learned from.
I think the toughest thing was, many years ago, I was the editor-in-chief of Hamptons Magazine. I was there for over a decade. And when I left, I thought that was my identity. And it was like who I was. That's how people knew me. They knew me both through my professional life and my personal life through that lens. I didn't take maternity leave when I had my daughter. I was so just obsessed and driven by what I was doing. And when I left, I didn't give it any space, and I totally fell apart. And I just I lost a huge part of who I was. And I feel like everyone shakes their head here because you get that. But it was such a distinct part of my personality. And it was my social life, it was my professional life, it was my personal life, my marriage, basically 13 years of my marriage were part of that. Mm-hmm. Raising the formative years of my daughter were through that. And when I left, I was just I didn't know who I was. And that was
it's like being it is like being for very much for you, it was like being a celebrity, being an actress on a top hit television show. Everyone knew who you were in that space, and it was taking pictures with taking pictures with celebrities, and
then it took
goes away. It's scary.
It took to be honest, it took
you're still working through it. You're still working.
I'm actually working through it right here. Thank you. I'm actually working through it right now. Hold on. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm fine. A lot of therapy. Two times a week for a while. Now just but it, as much as I can say, and we're all talking about how important working as a woman is, I almost took it to a too far of a degree, and it became so much a part of who I was. And it took a number of years to just separate those two things and understand what my value was as a professional, and also understand what it looked like. I came back into being a mom in a way that I was oh my God, my daughter's going to be so psyched that I'm home, and she's I'm not used to you being here all the time. What you're saying, where it's I need the siesta at 3. She's where's the siesta? Just go. You're here all the time. And I overcompensated. And then that took a while to understand what balance looks like. I can be present, I can figure out what I enjoy. And now my daughter's almost 17, but what it looks like being a mom that the two of us enjoy. Yeah. And also what being a professional looks like and what's rewarding. So that's that was a heavy-handed.
I'm so glad you shared that. I think that's awesome.
It was it was too much. And then it was nothing, right? And then I was to what you're saying, I was oh my God, I couldn't even, I launched my own company. I was I'm a fraud. I don't even know. Right?
Yes,
I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. By the way, imposter syndrome did not exist as a term.
Yeah.
47. I like that it's a term now, but it didn't exist as a term. And I was I don't know what I'm doing. Why is anyone going to hire me? What am I It went all over the map. Every single day my husband's what are we feeling today? A little crazy. But yeah, it took, but that's the, I guess that's my heavy work-life lesson.
I think the hardest part for me was rejection along the way. Not because I don't have a thick skin, and not because I was personally injured by the rejection, which I actually don't think I was, but because I was frustrated by the fact that I had always believed that if I just worked hard enough and tried hard enough,
wouldn't be rejection.
that I would be able to accomplish whatever I wanted. And all of a sudden I was in this industry where you could write the best book and someone may buy it, but 4 people might reject it first. And I just sort of felt like, maybe we should talk. If we talk, maybe you can see why you really need to publish this book. And I've always said, and I always say this to authors coming up, if there is any interest from an editor at a publishing house, do whatever you can to get on the phone with them. Because my belief was always, if I could just get the editor on the telephone, I could convince them verbally, and that I wasn't just some manuscript being handed in. So the rejection was frustrating me again, not because I can't deal with rejection, I actually can, but because it was sort of like, what do you mean you're rejecting me? Like, I can do this, right? Like I can.
Do you think that something I've realized probably seriously only the past 4 months is that I really suck at dealing with not getting a why? And I didn't realize this about myself. And I'm like, but there was like a work situation that was, it seemed so on track. And the other thing I realized is like what I would fight for to do now career-wise. Like I know exactly what type of role I'd be like, sign me up, you don't have to pay me, like I'll do it.
Right.
But when I couldn't get an answer about like, wait, well, why? I'm like batting my head against the wall.
Usually
like, you're not going to get a freaking answer.
In my world, you do get an answer. Sometimes the answer is hollow, and I just didn't fall in love with the book, or I didn't, or you have an amazing voice, but it's this or that. So there was always a why. I don't think I was as wrapped up in that. And then the other thing I will quickly say that's been tough for me is I always want to take on everything. And this is an example from very early on in my career, clearly. I kept writing these articles for $50. I mean, this is like in the very, very beginning. And one day Lewis just looked at me and he was like, enough. Mm-hmm. You put so much time and energy. You're better than this already. Aww. Like, please stop writing articles for $50.
Right.
Just like don't take on 20 articles for $50. Search out that one article that you could get paid $2,000 for, But I was always, it's work. It's a chance to prove myself. And when Stephanie was telling her story about, should she do a million little things? It was in Vancouver. There was a period during COVID where you really, and this, not only was I so in awe of it and I had so much respect for it, she decided what was right for her, what was right for her family, and she just said, this is what I can do, this is what I can give you, I'm simply not doing any more than that. And I thought, she's fucking crazy. She's on a hit television show. Like, just do the fucking show. Do whatever they're asking you to do. Like, don't worry about your kids or your family. Just like do it. It's going to advance you to the next level. And that wasn't what was most important to her. Both things were important to her. And obviously my kids are important to me. But, the right career opportunity came up. But I was so respectful of that because I've always been this person who almost feels like I can't say no to things. Yes. And Lewis is always the one, I offered a couple of months ago, this is not actually short at all. I got offered a couple of months ago, 2 Real Housewife people were doing a book. And by that point, I was in a phase where I had done a couple of Real Housewife books and I was trying to move away from that, and it wasn't the right project for me. It wasn't going to pay enough. There were so many wrong things about it. But I kept saying to myself, 2 years ago, you would have killed to get this book. Yes. How can you give it up? How can you give it up? And I called my agent and I called Lewis. I called them both to ask them about it. And I was like 1/10 of a way through the description of what, and they were like, you're not doing that. Right. No, what? Right. What? No, your instinct is right. Don't do it. And I was like, okay, I can turn it down. I can turn it down.
I feel the same way. I guess
that's awesome.
It's like that's an awesome confidence reminder. What did Lewis say about that? Was he?
He was like, turn it down. He's like, that's so you're past that.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, there's nothing redeeming about this to you except that it's a project. Like it doesn't pay your fee.
Right,
It
like you
doesn't.
don't need to make yourself busy. to
Yeah, like
prove
something. Well, something else will come along in 3 weeks that is the right project and does pay your fees. So don't just take this because it's being offered to you.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time with that.
It's like,
No, that's great.
it's your instinct. That's great though.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I mean, I can't build on any of this. I totally agree. I mean, and the times that I've had the hardest times in my life, from teenagehood on, therapy has really helped. I mean, I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that there are times that I've been able to muscle through it. Mm-hmm. And there are times, why are you bothering to muscle through it? Like there are times you don't have to do that. Mm-hmm. And so even when I didn't have like a lot of money, I found some, therapist in my 20s who would take a sliding scale. Like I really am glad that you've driven that home because everybody has that. Like the idea that people don't need help is a fiction,
Mm-hmm.
It's a
I
total
have never been in therapy.
Wow.
Not because I don't feel that because I'm anti it. I just have never done it.
And have you ever?
I always think I can figure it out for myself.
And maybe you can, but like, have you ever had
maybe
a bout
that's why
of
I'm so
depression
crazy.
or anything?
No.
That's good. Yeah.
No,
I would say that's the tipping point. Like to me, the tipping point is a prolonged period of sadness or depression. Usually, for me, it's situational, like a loss. Mm-hmm. If there's a loss, a job, a relationship where I can't pull myself back, that's where I have relied on therapy.
But I think for professionals, it's really important to say that too, though. Like a loss can be a job.
Absolutely.
Like, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people,
Like,
that was the
you're
first
again.
time.
Yeah. Yes.
I was just like, I'd never been in therapy before. My parents never believed in therapy. I just didn't like grow up in that. While all of my friends in New York City were in therapy, I was like the one kid who wasn't. Yeah. Well, and Emily too, apparently.
Right,
so
the two of us.
Two
We're not in
kids,
therapy.
not in therapy in Manhattan. And it shocked me that I was like, a job is like a loss. Like I just didn't understand that. I was, but yeah, no, I think that's like such an important point too, where you're just like, you just can't like pull yourself out of like, you're just not yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Or sometimes you need someone to
you
reset.
you really like can't, like there were things that I'm like a big one, like I can muscle through a lot. And I was like, oh, I can't muscle through this one on my own.
That's good.
And I think also you don't need to be in crisis mode, even on relationships.
Right.
Like a lot of people, if you go to counseling, marriage counseling, it's like, oh, things aren't that good. No, it's actually great. You learn how to argue. You learn, it's...
Yeah.
We're not taught in schools how to take, criticism, how to react when we take something personally. There's so many like emotional intelligence is not really taught in school.
Yeah, or sensitivity. I thought a lot about that. Like, ooh, maybe I am a lot more sensitive than I thought, right? Like, really, it's interesting to look at yourself through a different lens. Lastly, do you guys have anything that you're doing now that is a part of your day, like a ritual that you do that you think is really awesome and helpful?
Yes, I do. I'd like to start with this because I feel very strongly about it.
I'm looking for stuff.
I feel very, very strongly about this.
Okay.
Stephanie gave me this beautiful book. It's like a gratitude journal. And so you wake up in the morning and talk about what you're grateful for that day.
Like a gratitude list.
It's a
called
total
a 5-minute journal.
That's what it's called?
Yeah.
5-minute journal?
It's so wonderful because Oprah had a gratitude, like the 3 things you're grateful for, and I knew during a previous, like a hard time, that works, like saying what you're grateful for. But this is just like a ritual, like a practice to reframe your day. Like if you start in the morning and talk about what you're grateful for, what you're looking for forward to that day, and then at the end, literally it's like 1 minute, like what did you learn today?
At the end of your day?
At the end of your day.
What was good today?
What was good today? And
It's really good when you have a shitty day.
It's such a gift.
That's so awesome.
And it can be big things and small things.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
I've been doing it for 7 years.
Clean running water can be
Absolutely.
So good.
Absolutely. Yes.
Is it the first thing you do?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
And the last.
And last, yeah.
Bedside table.
Yes,
Yeah.
bedside table.
Okay, what's yours?
I started doing meditation like 10 years ago, and then transcendental meditation like 7 years ago or 8 years ago, and it's really amazing.
What does that mean, the transcendental?
It's just a technique, so you can do guided meditation, you can do breathing, different focus. So this is just, what's different is that you go to a course for 4 days and somebody teaches you how to do it.
Okay.
and it seems a little intense, but it's really easy after that to keep it going. It's not a spiritual practice. It's not. It's very. You don't need to be religious or anything. And what I found, the meditation itself is not what's helpful. Is like when you are going about your day and your thoughts are like, because you do this training of looking at your thoughts when they go like this and then bringing them back to your mantra. During the day when you're in a thing like this, you catch yourself and you're more able to bring it back to the present. It's been really good.
I saw a sergeant or a captain, I'm sure I'm getting his title wrong, in the military, saying that the most important thing to start your day is making your bed. And I can be the kind of person who I think, like, I take beautiful pictures, my Instagram looks really beautiful.
Then you have a junk closet where everything's stuffed in there and you open the door and it all
falls in your face. Like, that is kind of me, right? Like, so I can be super, super calm, or I can be really chaotic. Like, I don't have a good middle ground. And so if I don't do certain things, I lean more towards chaos than calm, and I need to be like calm. I mean, none of us want to be chaotic, but when I get chaotic, it just more chaos starts. And so I always wake up in the morning, like open the shades, like pull up the blinds, whether it's rainy or it's sunny, just like seeing natural light, and make my bed and like make it really pristine and beautiful. Because if I don't do that, every single thing, and it's so simple, but like for probably 99% of the population, that's not important. Or maybe, I mean, those numbers may be skewed, but for a lot of people, that's probably not important. For me, if I don't do that, I lean towards like, who's the one in like the one in the Charlie Brown. Yeah, right. It's like
wow,
you know what I'm saying.
That was a good. I wasn't on that plane at all.
You might be a little similar.
Like very similar.
Yeah,
like I can lean in that direction. If I wake up in the morning and like I make my bed, I get up and I just start the day in a beautiful manner. It like sets the tone and the stage for what the rest of the day is going to be like. If I don't do that, I can kind of tell you by the end of the day, it's not going to be good.
I love that.
So that's it. It's like not crazy. I mean, I meditate, I do, I do a lot of other things, but it's like the bed making, I can always tell, like, if you go into my bedroom and my bed's not made, housekeeper or not, I always make my own bed. I don't do my own sheets, but I make my own bed. That's just kind of the barometer of like calmness in
That's how you achieve it.
my life.
Cruise director?
Mine is simple. I just walk. Unless it's really pouring rain, even if it's drizzling, I just walk. I walk anywhere between 3 and 5 miles in the morning, and that's my time to just clear my head. Sometimes I talk to a friend if that's something that I, for part of it. If not, I just listen to music and sort of like think about, either I think about something that's on my mind, or I think about how my day's gonna look, whatever it is, it just like centers me. And
What time do you leave?
what time do I start walking? It depends. If it's like during the school year, I just go like when my kids go to school. So I'll go at 8 a.m. In the summer, it's more like 8:30 maybe. And then I usually walk for like an hour. And then I come back and start working. And I consider that my exercise as well.
That's great. Yeah, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
So grounding things. Grounding things. Thank you guys. Thanks for lunch. Super fun. I love those ladies, and I just feel grateful to be a part of those conversations, because there's so much knowledge there and so much breadth of different types of experiences. My friend Stephanie Szostak, who I said was the actress, she talked about the book that she's releasing. This is it. She gave me a copy early. It's Selfish, and next week is when this comes out. So shameless plug for her, but it's so awesome. And as I told her, it's so cool to see that her worlds of acting and really putting her passion down to paper are sort of
converging at the same point, which is amazing. Anyway, all of those women are wonderful. Alisyn's memoir is coming out after the 1st of next year, and Emily is writing a book that is going to be coming out sometime soon as well. As for me, I'm really enjoying doing this. I would love to hear what you guys want to hear more of, the types of conversations that you're enjoying, and I hope you're having a great fall. So don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review. Let me know what you think. Listen anywhere you can get your podcast, and tell your friends. Tell your friends to listen. Tell them to watch. As always, I appreciate you interacting and collaborating with me here in this space, and I look forward to seeing you next time.